Oh, yeah, me too.
Okay.
Oh, Paul, you're such a good host.
Recording.
He said, beginning his recording.
Yeah. Well, I got to find my microphone first. Okay, here we go. Is it bouncing? It's bouncing. Is it? I wonder. It's clipping.
Clipping and bouncing. The Paul Hagstrom story.
All right, let me launch. Yeah, here.
Although I've recently signed up to be on board for the @Paul Hagstrom story. That's very funny, Paul. That was very funny.
That was pretty cool.
I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't think of that. That's great.
What?
My Twitter account turned 13, so I made a Twitter account for it.
For his Twitter account. His Twitter account now has a Twitter account. So, well, he is @Paul Hagstrom. The Twitter account is at Paul Hagstrom. It's awesome. I chuckled very hard at that.
That is very funny.
Yeah.
All right.
When will you get a Facebook account?
I think
How old do you have to be
Facebook
for Facebook? Is 13? Is it 15 or 16?
I don't know. But you know the what's super unsettling about that is that I didn't even count how many commas there were in that number, but like I was like in the 6 millions or something like that on my original account, and now it's like I don't even know, like quintillions of accounts or something. It's just many accounts that exist on Twitter, many more than there are people.
Oh yeah, so many more than there are people.
I mean, like every person probably could have a million or so.
Wow.
Hey, so do I sound about right volume-wise? Because I just switched inputs when I'm talking. Sounds about right?
Yep.
Okay.
Sounds good from here.
All right. Cover that up.
Okay.
I am, let's see, I think I'm recording. Hold on. Yes, I'm now recording.
Excellent. I'm recording. I'm in a shadow.
I'm recording.
Sorry.
And we are streaming.
Okay. I am @Paul Hagstrom recording.
Okay. It's May 31st, 2020, and welcome to episode 215 of the Retro Computing Roundtable. The RCR is a podcast about retro computer news, nostalgia, collecting, computer graphics, and whatever else comes along. So I am Paul Hagstrom in Boston, and I am joined today by three retro computing enthusiasts, the first of whom, I'll go down diagonally. Carrington Vanston in Toronto, how are you?
I am excellent. How are you doing, Paul?
I'm doing quite fine. And then up vertically from Carrington in Northern Virginia is Blake Patterson. How are you?
Doing well. Nice breezy day outside today. So sunny and happy.
That's good. Clearing out the smoke
Yeah.
within the breeze. That's good. And then down diagonally from Blake is Jack Nutting in Stockholm.
Hello. I'm doing all right over here.
Right. I'm glad that you took my implicit question of how you're doing.
Yeah. Just ran with it.
Nobody asked, Jack.
Never mind that.
Stick to the weather.
You'll never get to know how I'm doing.
Yeah. So, as usual, I've made spatial references to people's position on my screen in an audio podcast. So that's good. Good way to begin.
But
so,
it's not just an audio podcast.
I guess that's true. We have... Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we could mention it right up front, because some people are probably subscribers and have been for a long time, are regulars, and don't necessarily know or haven't thought about that we do a live video stream every time we do this these days. We've been doing it for a few months, and it's pretty fun because we actually see each other and laugh at each other. I mean, with each other. And
we laugh near each other.
We even hold things up sometimes.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, I should say, it's looser, full of more ums and all that stuff,
Yeah.
but and even more wrong statements than get out on the podcast feed. But nevertheless, if you want to see the sausage made, join us on the YouTube stream, and you can actually also comment to us and stuff, so we can say hello. So
the director's cut, as it were.
that's right, the raw footage.
Speaking of which, we have a comment right now. Did you see this, Blake? Tobias says that your audio is pretty bad.
Is it? Oh, bad. Let's see.
It's a little it sounds a little boxy, I would say.
Let me see.
Like
where.
a Volvo?
Yes.
Yes.
It's boxy, but it's good.
It's boxy, but it's good. Very safe audio.
Let me bring up the.
And suddenly, Blake has crumple zones.
And this is the stuff. Yes, and we're also talking at 1x speed.
Yeah.
Right. So
I can solve that. Challenge accepted.
does it mean quiet or too loud or?
He just doesn't like what you have to say, Blake.
But yeah, it sounds okay to me, I think.
I think the volume is okay. But it's like a little. To me, it's a little. Sounds like an old AM radio a little bit.
Really, let me bring the mic a little closer.
That's true.
Like the mids are pretty clear, and everything else is a little muffled.
Oh,
What
you music people
microphone are you
with your mids.
It's
So this is real sausage making territory.
it's an Audio Technica. Does that sound any better or?
That sounds about the same.
I could switch to.
Maybe you have no mids.
Maybe Blake is out of focus.
Let me switch to. I have a headset. I could switch to a headset.
Ooh, check out this guy.
Let's try it.
Let's give it a shot.
Sorry about.
Have you checked which mic input you're using to make sure you're on the?
Yeah, it says I'm using here.
Oh, good.
What about here? I'll switch to. This is the internal microphone. I don't know if that sounds any better. It's the iMac mic.
Not a good idea.
No.
It sounds identical, so I wonder if that's what you're using.
Totally
anyway.
identical to me.
I wonder. Let me. Oh, you know what? I'm looking at the system settings.
StreamYard,
computer?
StreamYard, yeah,
StreamYard may be picking up the wrong
Well,
thing.
I set it up when I came in, but
Oh, StreamYard.
StreamYard's pretty good, though.
oh no,
Everybody.
yes,
We like
it's,
StreamYard.
it's trying to use my AirPod in my ear.
For those of us who suffered
Oh,
through
get ready.
Skype for so long.
Get ready, here it comes.
Okay.
Here comes the quality.
I love your new slogan there, Blake. Here comes the quality.
Here comes the quality.
Mike, here we go.
Now this should sound better.
Oh,
Absolutely does.
here's FM quality Blake coming at you live on the midnight
Yeah,
shift.
there we go.
Time for smooth.
I might actually have
Time for smooth jazz with Blake Patterson.
the input. The input. Is that too much?
It's never too much.
That sounds
That's
good.
great.
All right. Thanks for the feedback on YouTube there.
Yeah.
So I won't put on this headset.
There's also a comment, Jack, that you pronounced his name correctly.
I did.
I know. At first I thought, well, that's an odd pronunciation of that name. And turns out you were right.
In
Us Canadians know
Scandinavia,
nothing.
it is Tobias.
Cool. Or not
I
to be
guess-
us.
That is the question. The name?
No doubt that is the first time that has been uttered.
The very first time. I am coining phrases here, folks, live on YouTube. Quality stuff.
Okay. Yeah. That's good. Got our
Welcome.
derailing out of the way right at the beginning.
Oh,
Yep, sorry.
let's rail again.
Okay.
Have we started? Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we did.
So
Unbelievably, this is it. Hey, folks, this is the show.
Yeah. Okay.
okay.
All right.
Okay. So the what were we saying? I guess we were saying that the
Basically, we're
the,
saying welcome to the show.
Yeah, we have a YouTube, right? Okay. So the host topic today was suggested over email by Sebastian, and it was basically what was everyone's first experience with computer video, its development, its impact. This is a pretty broad, vague topic, but
Broad
so-
and vague is my wheelhouse.
yeah, I think we all have things that we can talk about, and they may be only very slightly related. What Sebastian was suggesting was, thinking about the debate between QuickTime and Real Player and Windows Media Player in the 90s, and he actually has an interesting project, which I'll mention it down in the feedback part. That sort of relates to this too. But so I think we've all had a chance to think a little bit about things that we might talk about in this respect. I don't know who wants to go first. Blake, did you want to start?
Yeah, I can do that. I'm just sort of I've thought about this a bit, but I'm just kind of loosely talking here. When I think about computer graphics, I mean, I guess I have always been a fan and a person motivated to move from one computer to the next, as I did quite a bit in the home computer days in the 80s, early 80s and beyond, being motivated by graphics as kind of the, this computer has new capabilities. I want to try that out. And of course, back then, when you switched to take advantage of graphics, you also got an entirely new operating system and ecosystem and software base. And that was actually, I think that was viewed as a bad thing generally because of, software investments. I actually quite enjoyed it. That was the other reason to switch, because it was interesting. But yeah, so graphics, I've always used, every computer I've had a drawing program. That was one of the things I've used mainly from back on the Apple IIc, the Mac, things like that. And I spent a lot of time just doodling. So I was always aware of the graphics hardware. I got to the point by the late 80s that I could actually tell by looking at a CRT what resolution mode they were in. It's very clear to be able to see 640 by 200, or that's actually 640 by 240, or he's in 320 by 400. Those things, I paid attention to. And so the graphics hardware was always something, for not just the games, but, demo scene things, drawing. And it's been interesting to watch that evolve, from some of the earliest computers in the home had no color. And then as time moved on, primitive color achieved through, various hacks of the video signal, and then proper, graphics modes. And I guess one of the standout things for me is when the Amiga arrived, the Commodore Amiga 1000, that, at the time, people were using, CGA was the standard, which is basically, 6 colors on screen out of 8 in high res, very strange combinations. Some of the other home computers actually looked a little better. I think Apple II, Atari 8-bits had, lots of color. They were actually the parents of the Amiga, the 8-bit Ataris. But the Amiga had, out of nowhere, I think the most colors any system that you could get in a consumer world were 64-color palette of EGA on the PC. And that was like on the AT, which is extremely expensive, 1984, 85. The Amiga had 4,096 colors, and you could have, in a certain mode, you could have them all on screen. And in most modes, you had 32, and that was mind-blowing. That was just a complete break with anything I'd ever seen or anyone had ever seen. And so I was astonished by this. As soon as I read the first word about it, I got on board to get one, and I actually ended up purchasing the first. I verified this now after the fact through some old historical newspaper articles. I've purchased the first Amiga sold in Virginia, in the state of Virginia, back in October 1985. So there you can see my fondness for the graphics, obviously, and also luckily parents who would buy me the computer with a little, at least help me significantly.
Do you still have that one, or did you?
I don't have that one. I still moved on to other computers, as things evolved. But I actually I've reacquired an Amiga 1000 to, kind of have the same setup I had before. It's in excellent condition. It's just a little more enhanced than the one I had before, and I've got a Amiga 2000 as well. But yeah, I enjoy the Amiga 1000. It's actually, I think, one of the nicest physically looking machines that I've ever seen. And of course, its graphics, they still look impressive to me in a way that's not entirely nostalgic. So it's fun to work with.
That's actually, just to interrupt, that's actually a good point. I find when I evaluate and consider retro computers now, I am motivated by the aesthetics of their industrial design, whereas back in the day, like a new computer, an improved one, was necessarily better. But I look back at Power Macs now, I don't like the last few of those because I'm like, the mirror drive doors, well, that just looks ugly. I prefer one that's slower because it's nicer looking. So it's weird how my the desirability of a computer now has these new elements that never existed before. Anyway, you reminded me of that.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Although
part
it could
of the
be
thing.
that the mirror on the mirror drive door is the problem there.
It could very well be. Reflective surfaces, no, not for me. Not for parakeets and not for me.
That's good. Yeah, I mean, not to get too far off topic here, but like that physical presence is one of the reasons. Like I could use a terminal on my Mac, my modern Mac, but I use like the Amiga 1000 is my most frequently used BBS machine because I like the physical feel of using it, and just some different computers just picking up a 8-bit like an Atari 800 or something if you have muscles for it.
If you can pick up an 800,
it's a nice feeling. But anyway, so just I'll add. So for me, the graphics question, video question, went towards pixels, and and now, yes, I have modern setups for gaming and that sort of thing, and of course you add the big graphics card, and that's a direct descendant of the chips on the motherboard that were doing the graphics way back when. But the one other thing I'll say for video, which is aside from the pixels, is I guess just I'll speak of a memory, which was the first time I played the game Myst. I purchased I had a PC. It was, I guess, the first DOS machine I had. One of the first DOS machines I ever had. It was like in the early 90s. I purchased a CD-ROM for it. Got a SCSI card and a CD-ROM in order to play, Myst, and I knew other things were coming, but that was the first time I'd ever seen, streaming, if you call it that, just live video that was being piped from, a data device into, in any meaningful way. I mean, I guess there were little QuickTime demos that were 4 seconds
tiny,
very small.
Yeah, they're like 60 pixels by 40, but and that was an amazing thing. It's people really. I was blown away and had the experience of playing that game through. Was one of the best gaming experiences I've had. I think because of the multimedia and the whole feel. It gave such a great, so immersive. Again, it's also one of the games that people seem to trash on, dump on more than any other for whatever reason. And of course, there's lots of videos and links about the history and making of Myst, and I'd advise people to go. They're easily found on the internet. But
I didn't know there was a backlash against Myst. I didn't know there were anti-Myst. I guess there's anti-everything. People,
hardcore gamers at the time when you're playing Doom and whatever else. I think Myst. It was you're clicking. It was basically a hypercard. A super fancy hypercard stack. You're clicking and there's video, and I think it was viewed as not hardcore, but I found it much more immersive. Right. And the audio was part of it, but much more immersive than like Doom or something. It's just a different experience. I
guess I didn't notice because I am myself a filthy casual. So like, I just me and the people that are, I'm like, yeah, Myst, awesome, play it now.
And I think how some of it was just not to go on about it, but some of it was on the Usenet. I think when it came out, there were different alt game PC, PC.games or something, and people would be, people had to have something to argue about, So
the gatekeepers.
That was you got to have an argument and process. But anyway, I think I'll end there because I didn't want to move away without having share the memory of Myst. But really the biggest, I think, as you could see from my explanation, was the Amiga was kind of the biggest jolt that I ever saw at any point as far as jumping from here to there technologically in graphics. So I'll give it up for whoever wants to go next.
I think clockwise that'll be Carrington.
Okay, sure. For me, the topic, like all topics, I immediately just
terrible Myst is.
Myst, awful. I'm going to spend the next hour explaining why. Then I'll change my mind, and the second hour will get exciting. No, but I did. My first thought was games, full motion video games. Hooray for those and their awfulness. Myst also great gaming experience. I loved it. I at the time liked things like The Seventh Guest. I've gone back and replayed it and realized I had too low a standard at the time, I guess, because things like that don't hold up for me personally. But then other titles like Phantasmagoria and stuff I've revisited and enjoyed. And then there was the big ones like Wing Commander 3 and 4. When you start getting like big name actors from Hollywood being in full motion video games. So that kind of stuff was the first thing that came to mind. There's an interesting website I found recently called Full Motion Video World at fmvworld.com. And they just have like so many games there where you can read information about it and what it played on and all the details, and then see game trailers and things. So if you're interested in the genre, it's a great source. Next thing I thought of was the CD based consoles. So again with games, but once they started moving to CDs, you started getting a lot more video in, and most of these were complete non-starters. Things like the CDI and the 3DO and other. I guess the Sega CD too, which I guess arguably more successful. But again, like games where they're just saying, hey, let's shoehorn video, and that's the new hotness. Nowadays, of course, that's been taken to such a different extreme, and it's hard to tell between the film stuff and the animated things. But at the time, there was a distinct thing. And most of those things are notoriously awful. Two other categories that jump to mind, though. A small one, which was because of computer video now being something that was much more accessible, if in a small format, there started being computer videos incorporated into other things. So I remember a period where you would buy audio CDs and then they would have some video on it. And so there'd be, you put an audio player and it would just play audio, but then you could take your audio disc and stick it in your computer, and on it would be a QuickTime video or a Shockwave video or something like that. The first one that I encountered that I can recall was sorry, group. If you're members of the group and you're listeners, I'm sorry for calling your band terrible. But it's a group called Pop Will Eat Itself. Great name, but and they had a song called PWEI, which stands for Pop Will Eat Itself, which I guess was about itself, which kind of makes sense if your band is named Pop Will Eat Itself. But anyway, on it was a video. And I had that audio CD and I never watched the video. And I ripped all my CDs at a time when I was ripping CDs and then getting rid of the CDs. And it's one of the very few CDs I held on to after ripping everything because it had this video on it that I had never watched. And I thought, well, I should at least see the video once. So it became one of the CDs I had after almost everything was gone because it was just on a shelf. And I'm thinking, I should eventually watch that video. It was not worth the wait. But I did hold on to it for many years. So PWEI suckered me into keeping their CD for like a decade and a half or something. Anyway, but the biggest category for me when it comes to computer video was thinking in terms of multimedia and then actual video editing. So when I think multimedia, I think Macromedia and the stuff that they made, which then a lot of which became Adobe things. So like Director and Shockwave and making Flash videos and that kind of like make your own little movies and then play them in Flash videos online. But then eventually getting into full NLEs, like so nonlinear editings. So I was a QuickTime guy because I was a Mac user, so that's kind of what I got on. And in my notes, it even says Real Player sucked with many U's. So apparently, I still have opinions about that. I just wasn't a fan. Not that QuickTime was great, and QuickTime then later got crippled, so is what it is. But I have fond memories of using Final Cut Pro to edit videos. And I made a movie once. I don't know if a lot of listeners know, but I actually made wrote and directed a feature film called Duck Duck Goose. What came of it? So little that I don't have an IMDb, and there's nothing about me in there. So the movie got picked up by nobody. But I was in some festivals, and so that was cool. And creating a video or creating a movie with Final Cut Pro was a fun process, which I think I started using it back when that was with Macromedia, but then did the film when it was the Apple version. And then like learning about EDLs and that kind of stuff. And so nowadays I use Final Cut Pro and Adobe Premiere Pro and Avid Media Composer. You kind of switch back and forth between them. But I think things like Lightworks and Vega are super popular. I just haven't used them. But I think in all, I think the most important note is that Real Player sucked. And I think that's really what I'm gonna end with. That's the most important thing I've said.
All right. There we go. Maybe that can be the name of the episode.
Yes, Real Player sucks.
Before we move on, I think for the benefit of the YouTube crowd, and I ran over to my shelf, Carrington, after you mentioned the word, and I'm arranging what is a dizzying number of CD-ROMs.
That have
Phantasmagoria.
Phantasmagoria.
Seven CDs. It's seven a kit of 7 CDs, which is astonishing. That's
imagine if it came on floppy.
yeah, indeed. So yeah, I was there too.
Yep. Like I remember all those times where you'd get the suddenly games were a bunch of discs on CD. Like why should there be more than one of these? And again, it's because there's so much that full motion video, which you look at now and think I can compress this down into nothing. You put it on a little thumb drive, but
well, and it's if you these 7, I mean that's really only 3,500 megs. It's like 3.5 gigs, and I don't know. That's like Tetris. Modern Tetris is probably bigger than that.
Yep. But back then, the codecs and stuff, everything's improved so much. Everything not only looks better, but is so much smaller for the video size. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what about you, Jack? What came to mind when people mention computer video to you?
Computer video. Well, so I guess I thought a bit about the the old Atari systems, where one sort of design feature of the graphics hardware and everything from the Atari VCS, which is the video computer system, up through the 8-bit computers, and then technology-wise, jumping from there to the Amiga, but kind of the same people, as Blake mentioned, behind some of these things. All of these systems were built around that the main visual output was video, in the sense of NTSC or PAL video, that it's all about, anything beyond that was sort of a side effect or a side artifact. And later Amiga systems that could do much higher res things that didn't fit with that. But the original designs, the original machines were all just that. Even when they had RGB output, they would output things that were at the same resolution and capability roughly as this. But I guess mostly what I thought about was of this question was the use of video, motion video, as we see either watching videos or editing videos, that kind of thing. I think Sebastian, in his question, he mentioned things like QuickTime and other things where in the early days where that was a way to do it. And I guess one thing that struck me before, in addition to this also, was I remember the first time that a video game blew me away with video, and that was the arcade game Dragon's Lair, where it was all running off of a laser disc. Essentially, there was the computer in the machine wasn't generating video at all. It was just playing video sequences. But if you don't remember, not familiar, it was basically an interactive animated film, and you had to make choices with your character with the joystick. And so it was like a little knight running through a castle to slay a dragon and rescue a princess. And it was not it looked like a normal video game with a joystick and a button, but it was really those joystick presses were just to trigger. Okay, I'm going to make the guy run left here, and that will trigger a different video sequence than if I let him run straight forward, kind of. But beyond that, I also thought about things like the first time that I was able to use a system that really worked with video, worked in conjunction with, say, video from a VCR of any kind, was in college. We had a video toaster, which was a hardware add-on for the Amiga 2000, which this is still before non-linear editing was not really feasible because there wasn't hard drive space for it for the general user. But it could do some really great stuff. It worked with the built-in Amiga's video, but it could also do more things. So it's pretty easy to do overlays and green screens and this kind of thing. You could make sort of cool transitions between things. And it was really a huge leap forward in terms of what you could do as a consumer, because all you needed was an Amiga 2000 and this extra piece of hardware. So it's for an investment of, I don't know, $3,000 or $4,000, you got something really incredible that was better than any TV studio had in the 2 or 3 years right before that. It was just such a huge leap forward. So I remember using that. I had a class or two where we used that, and that was pretty fun. But the first time that I remember seeing video in a computer application of any kind playing video was a game on the Sega CD. This is probably in 1992 or 3. A friend of mine in college had the Sega Genesis with the CD, and there was this game called Deathtrap. and it's kind of an infamous game, infamously terrible game. But like the concept wasn't totally bad. Basically, it was like you were surveilling a house, like there were bad guys storming a house, sort of, and you had a choice of switching between different surveillance cameras to see where they were to try and stop them somehow. And beyond that, it was actually, there was a lot about it that it was pretty stupid and really annoying. But it was actually pretty cool because it gave the feeling of, imagine you are a security operator sitting in a room somewhere, pressing buttons to click to different cameras. I want to see camera 3, camera 4, to try and see where the guys are running around. And that was pretty neat. Kind of a gimmick, and again, I think they spent a lot of money to make this game, and it was pretty widely panned because it was not a great game. But it was an interesting application of the technology. And then I also remember around this same time that Michael Current, who both Paul and I know from college, he was talking about the amazing new Atari computer that was going to be coming. That did come eventually, the Falcon, which was an evolution of the Atari ST that had either 68030 or 040 in it. And one of the features of this computer was that it was going to be able to, in real time from a hard drive, stream full frame video. And that was something that basically no consumer computer had ever been able to do before. Like stream actual 30 FPS video from a hard drive onto your
crazy
screen.
talk.
And it's funny that something that now is so taken for granted. I can distinctly remember that he was excited about it, and I thought it seemed interesting, but I wasn't excited as he was. But it was just like, that is a pretty cool big leap that you can do with a computer you could buy off the shelf.
Yeah, I remember the Atari Falcon had. I never owned a Falcon. Actually, Falcon is like a block of gold now as far as getting one. It's that would be what I would most like to have right at this moment. Additionally, for the room here, but the Falcon also had that Motorola 56,000 DSP, which
it had that
I
too.
think was part. Yeah, it was part of what, like, it had audio capabilities, but I think it would use that in conjunction, sort of as a decoder.
Right.
It was quite impressive. And I know even today on the demo scene, the Falcon has some amazing demos that utilize all of its bizarre hardware to graphical effect.
Cool.
Excellent.
Yeah, so those are sort of my early memories of computer video. And then kind of, I was always interested in being able to do things like non-linear editing. Or like way before that in high school, my friends and we would make little movies using VHS camcorders and 2 VHS decks to sort of edit from from a source to a destination and stuff. And it was a pain in the neck, but it worked. But I remember the dream was like, imagine if you could just sort of like cut and paste things and not worry about syncing up decks and all this stuff.
Yeah, I totally remember doing a lot of videos using 2 tape decks between them. Now that weird blip of static on every cut.
Yes.
Oh, so annoying. And the
cringeworthy.
Obvious quality loss every time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Every time you touch it, yeah.
No,
I remember like among friends, there would be like, you would know, okay, this guy's VCR, it has a good recording pause functionality. So you can hit record and then pause it while it's recording, fix the other thing, get up where you want, and then hit play, and it will both start up fast without a pre-roll and not do the big glitch inside of it.
Yeah.
It was like you
Would've
learned
been like
like
gold
this,
in my hands.
Weird learned experience of what VCRs actually did, what you wanted to do to try and make this clearly thing happen.
Yeah.
Which of course nowadays, again, it's all that is gone. It's so easy. It's now so easy to make those kind of movies that I never do it.
All I lack is the skill.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, it's now you have to decide, editing some of the videos for whatever I'm working on at the time. I'm like, do I want to get up off the couch and go down and do it on the Mac? I do have my iPhone here. I can just do it just as well, and you can edit the HD video on your phone. It's crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
I was thinking that, in fact, like having that experience with the VCRs might well have really brought the impact of the Amiga to you. I mean, like, like you may not have cared as much if you didn't already know what a struggle this used to be.
Right. Yeah,
Kids
like
today.
I even remember that one of the things that I was doing both with my Atari 8-bits and later my Atari ST, because I actually had one that had like an RF output on it, was I would use them for making title sequences and things for the videos that I was doing either on my own or with friends. I didn't have any capability for doing overlaying or anything, but I could have we would record a title sequence and then have the movie after that.
Yep.
And I remember one time that I did a thing on the Atari 8-bit where it had a pretty good color palette, right? It had 256 colors, and they were sort of it was basically 16 different hues, which was each at 16 brightnesses. And one of the hues was just grayscale. So you had from white to black, 16 shades, which is pretty good. And because all these are, the palettes are basically, you set an index. So you're not really, I'm saying, okay, I've got background and foreground. Background is black, foreground is white 16. And then you can step it down to white 15, 14. And I remember making these things where I would fade the text in and out. And I remember that both my friends who had Commodore 64s and those who had Apple IIs thought this was actually impossible.
Yep.
How could you actually do that? And I was like, well, because this computer has more colors than yours. And they're like, what do you
Burn
mean?
the witch.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
People just could not believe this, but oh well.
Yeah, I did the same kind of thing with the Apple II, rolling title. I spent a bunch of time writing assembly language code that would scroll text up so that it would, look like, and it scrolled pretty slowly, and it had weird green and purple artifacts, and because it wasn't not perfectly good NTSC, like we were talking about one or two times ago with the sleazy trick, right?
Yeah, that one sleazy trick.
So it didn't record all that nicely, but
right.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was my mental meanderings about this topic.
All right. Well, and that actually leads fairly nicely into my mental meanderings, which were on a totally different area entirely. I was actually thinking about not so much motion video, but just kind of the things that happened on the Apple II. So let's see. I'm gonna attempt to share my simulator. There. Okay, that's cool.
Nice.
So on the Apple II, in the high res mode, you have actually pretty limited colors. I mean, it's basically 8 colors, except that 2 are white and 2 are black.
Right.
So it is really limited. But what I'm showing this on the screen. I may, but if I were to draw a line that is in the first column of the screen down from the top to the bottom, there's sort of 2 colors it could be. It could be either green if the high bit of this byte is off, and it could be red if the high bit is on. And so there's basically a palette choice that you can make. And it's basically just column 1. There's 280 columns across, and you just put it in any odd numbered column. It'll do this. And if I had put it in an even numbered column, it would be purple or blue. But the thing that I was actually sort of wanted to remark on was that one of the things at least is that if you turn it off, turn off the color so it becomes grayscale, they're actually shifted. So the red is actually off a half pixel to the right of the green. And so if you could assume that you had a monochrome monitor, you actually could double your resolution this way, which is a pretty wild trick. So I've seen there's a couple of games. I think there's a font program by Beagle Bros, and there's I think the what is that called? Bug Attack had the scores written this way. So these italic looking scores that were at higher resolution than your computer had. It was really very cool trick.
There was a game called Gemstone Warrior that also used it, and famously the title screen on the Apple II version of Archon used that in the curves of the of the wings of the creatures.
Because it was just white.
Right, the conflicting. Right, if you, as you say, if you align the blacks and whites together, so it basically was like the double high resolution, but you were tricking it, which is the resolution that came later. I actually wrote a blog post about that. Anyway.
Well, yeah, I mean, so this was the original Apple II. This almost the original Apple II that could do this before they actually had that much screen resolution. But that also reminded me, it's sort of on a similar topic too, just because the Apple II was using this weird trick or whatever. So at some point I wrote a little program that was attempting to basically like sort of demo some of the colors that you're not supposed to be able to get.
You did this at Kansas Fest, right? Wasn't this a Hackfest Century or something a few years ago?
Well, I may have mentioned it. I think I wouldn't have entered it because I wrote it years and years and years ago. But then you did a presentation or something. As soon as you brought up the screen, I'm like, I remember this. Yeah. For those listening in black and white, that's right.
Paul is showing us a bunch of colors.
Yeah, but so on the screen that I'm sharing, it has the colors that we expect to find. So blue and a couple of different whites and a purple and a green. I don't know whether the red is, I guess, off to the right. But then it turns out that there are certain places that you can put pixels that will just mess up the NTSC signal enough that you will get these unusual colors. So there's kind of like a gray and a brown and a deep blue that you can only do them in certain places on the screen. But
the deep blue is particularly weird to see on an Apple II. You think like that, you can't make that color.
Yeah, and I think it's quite possible that it wouldn't work on later machines. But like this was my kind of like, I guess, first experience with like the mysteries of graphics. That these colors are created by shifted pixels, and that they're and I forget exactly how some of these work, but I let's see how to do odd colors. On the screen that I'm sharing, it's a little text file that sort of talks about how this was done. This was on some disk that I wrote when I was a kid, and it says yet another semi-useful discovery of Grimalkin, because I called myself Grimalkin because it was kind of related to the Apple cat. But at any rate, so there's sort of very specific things. There's a magenta that you can only get in the negative first column. if you turn something else on the screen, high, like turn up the high bit on a certain other place on the screen. All of this, it's just super cool. So
I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
On the bottom where it says yet another semi-useful, the next line, discovery of Grimalkin. Is that colon there just so that both lines would have exactly the same number of characters?
It might well be.
Because if I was doing it as a kid, 100% that colon would have been there for that reason specifically.
Yeah, that's true.
Because it would have driven me crazy that the line below would have had one fewer character. I would have done anything to put something in there.
Yeah, I think that's quite likely. Yeah. Anyway, so I mean, I guess that, and there, I believe that I discovered this myself, but it was also written up in an article somewhere. So I think the thing I discovered myself was one of these and not all of these. And I was digging around, actually paying less attention at the beginning of this recording than I should have, because I was trying desperately to find this article. But at some point
we talked about the article. You missed it.
Oh, great.
You weren't listening. We specifically talked about it. In fact, that article was written by Jack.
Okay.
I'll say this is probably not the article you were talking about, but this is a link I'll share. I shared it in our chat. The Steve Gibson, who created the Gibson Light Pen, and he's big now into ham radio, I believe. Anyway, he created, when Microsoft came out with their sub-pixel anti-aliasing for LCD screens called ClearType, in Windows, I don't know where it landed in, maybe XP. I don't know when it arrived.
It was after XP, but I remember this and the
kerfuffle
about it.
They still have it. It was called ClearType. They made a big deal of it as a technology. Yes, and if you look at it's being shown for those who are not seeing in color video, it's being shown on the screen. And if you slide down a bit on the page, and there's yes, that's the history. Where you are right now. What he's trying to do with this his history of subpixel rendering page, and we'll share the link, is explain that it wasn't Microsoft who indicated that they created this technology, but Apple with the Apple II, and they're basically talking about what Paul you're talking about, and he has some examples showing how the interference of the colors will create twice the resolution effectively. So in his assessment, whether or not it was intended, Apple and their video approach on the original Apple II created this subpixeling, and I think that might be of rather of interest to anyone who was intrigued by what Paul's been demonstrating and talking about.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah, this wasn't the article I was thinking of, but I mean, the article I was thinking of was really like very short, like tiny article in something like Byte, or no, it was probably Byte. It was something that wasn't Apple specific, and it was way like 1978 or something like that, like super early. But very interesting. Anyway, that was the thing that graphics made me think of. Totally different ballpark from any of you, but that's okay.
It's all good.
Okay. Anything else anyone wanted to put in on that?
Don't think so.
No. Okay. I'm going to, let's see. I think we can move to, this is the place where I would normally have listener feedback, except that I seem not to have checked into what feedback we got. I've spent much of the last time editing the previous episode because, as you on the feed will now know, it was 2.5 hours long.
In fact, we're still recording that. We paused that one to do this show, and then we'll go back to finish up that show.
We'll see. Maybe by skipping the listener feedback, we will gain some time. I don't know, but no, we do appreciate the feedback, and we will talk about it next time. But I just didn't get to it.
Okay.
So we can turn instead to items of interest in news, and Blake has the first one.
Okay. Yes. Let me find my own notes. Okay. So this is a. I think we've talked recently about some computers that were early items. Things that hadn't really been huge on the radar, but were notable through the evolution of home computing. Anyway, I came across this video, and can't recall exactly how it got in front of me, but there's a computer system from the 70s. I think it was 78. 1978, and a company, Electronics Today International, created a unit called the Triton. And what it was a kit computer. And again, I'm not going to give the full detail. I don't have all the information here, but basically they had the schematics of it and various modules that you could plug into it in a magazine or various magazines. So you could basically, I think you could, if you bought a bare board from them, you could assemble it, or you could buy it assembled, and it came in many different configurations. So what I thought was interesting is it like one of the configurations would just have a monitor, like a ROM monitor, and that's it. It would have like 2K of RAM, 4K of RAM, or something to that degree. No OS, just a monitor, so you could poke around at it. Some of the configurations would have it would turn it on and you're in Pascal. Like that's it. You're instead of basic Pascal. I think there was another language. I feel like it wasn't basic, but if you wanted a little bit more, and yes, thanks for sharing that. That was a page that I was going to share, and it gives a little bit of the information on the screen here. And it was a single board computer, but if you wanted to get a configuration that had a greater degree of ROM, I think it actually came with, you could get a word processor in ROM. In addition to a language, you needed to buy a backplane, a slot backplane in which to insert this card and additional modules. And you could spec it all the way out up to, I think, a 48 or 64K computer that would actually run CP/M. And you'd have to, you didn't have a case. You're building a case. You're attaching a keyboard, just Apple I style. And so you could start with this little tiny kit and eventually end up, building and or buying these components to turn it into a disk-based CPU system. CP/M system that was, fully functional. Also, perhaps with a word processor in ROM and Pascal. It seems interesting. I'd never heard any news or mention of this system, and I thought it was kind of fascinating. So what my link is a video, and it's from Happy Little Diodes, is the individual who does a nice narration of the information, just takes you all the way through it. And this guy has done a number of good videos. I like his delivery. I think at one point the company behind it was called Transam, but as I mentioned, I think Electronics Today International was the original producer. I'm not sure exactly how that panned out. But it seems an interesting thing that it was obviously an easy way very early to get into computing, and I'm sort of shocked that I had never seen this anywhere. Have any of you folks heard of this ever?
I don't think so. It has a name that I might have. I mean, it's a very sort of I don't know. It's not. It's a name that you could imagine a computer being called.
Well, I know
Right,
Triton.
yeah.
At first I thought Triton was a very large third-party hardware and mail order company supporting the Texas Instruments 994A, and so I wondered if they were, they were the ones. But I don't think that has anything to do with it. So yeah, that was my first thought. But and of course, in the pictures here that Paul is sharing, everyone looks different because there's no case. Like people build their own case. Somebody's got it in a box. Someone's got it. In a wooden frame. It's interesting, but I, had never run across this before, and it got my attention.
Very interesting.
Cool. Yeah,
And it's a good video, so have a listen.
All right. And
That's
Carrington,
all.
you have the next thing.
I've got a fluff piece in popular science. It's the fluffiest of fluffy. So if you want to cuddle something and a kitten is not at hand, then here's your fluff piece about Microsoft Solitaire. And it's so fluffy. Basically, it says, hey, Microsoft Solitaire is still popular. Like, normally not something I would bring up, but an article in Popular Science that introduced a couple of concepts I didn't know. The first is that Microsoft Solitaire is now celebrating its 30th anniversary. So neat, introduced in 1990 with Windows 3. And so I didn't realize it was that old. I just knew it was like around forever. Everybody knows Microsoft Solitaire. But the other thing I didn't realize is that the Microsoft Solitaire collection currently has 35 million players per month online. That Microsoft has moved its stuff online. I didn't know that was a thing. And that Solitaire is massively popular online. So I'll have a link to that as well. And you can indeed play on the MSN Zone online, a thing I didn't know existed. You can play the original games that shipped with early versions of Windows. They've all been moved online. First thing I did was try it on a Mac with Safari just to see. Runs perfectly fine. So I don't know what tech they're using, but it's not something MS related. The site that it's on wants to pop up a bunch of videos. Like, it's just the whole experience is unpleasant, but it's kind of neat that it exists. And I'm very surprised that 35 million people per month play Solitaire online instead of the one that's probably in their computer as a bundle. I don't understand the appeal of this. What is going on with people? People are weird.
Maybe you don't feel as lonely or as solitary if you're playing it online.
You don't want to be lonely. Don't play Solitaire. It's in the name, folks.
These are all people who have switched to Mac, and so they don't have
That
Microsoft
Solitaire, the
on them.
million free Solitaires that exist for everything are not good enough. You need that Solitaire. Anyway, if you're hooked on Windows 3.0 Solitaire, that experience is available to you for free after watching a bunch of ads on the MSN Game Zone. And we'll have links to all of that. Plus, if you're just feeling lonely, you can cuddle this incredibly fluffy fluff piece in Popular Science.
I think on the Mac we have chess, but that's about it. That's all the games they give us is chess. So
They used to give us that sliding puzzle
Oh yeah.
on the early
right.
Macs.
oh yeah.
They dropped that one. It's been downhill since then. That's how you knew Steve Jobs wasn't a gamer. They dropped the sliding puzzle.
You're
Well,
right.
didn't we? I think we inherited chess from Next. Actually, I don't think we had chess before OS 10.
No.
That's right. That's right.
All right. So, I guess Jack, you have the next
I have the-
strange bit of news.
Next, which is not fluff, sadly. The Living Computers Museum plus Labs, which we've talked about a number of times in the show in Seattle. Like many other businesses and institutions, they've had to temporarily shut their doors due to the coronavirus, and now they're saying we are just stopping everything for now, and we're going to take a few months and evaluate if, when, or how we're going to open again in the future. So the future for it looks very uncertain right now, which is too bad. I've never even been there. I've never even been in Seattle, but it's been on my list of things I want to go visit
Me
at some
too.
point. It seems like what they're doing is so cool, and yeah, I don't know. Don't really know what to say about it beyond that, but it's worth mentioning, worth pointing out. I think that this is sadly shutting down
Yeah.
for now.
Yeah, this is it has generated a lot of discussion on some of the mailing lists, and I haven't been following it too carefully. But I mean, so this was basically Paul Allen's thing, right? So it was kind of like his collection made public, and when he passed away, I think that probably is causing some trouble with this. I mean, like there are stories. There's stories about like a movie theater in Seattle that he owned and ran getting kind of eaten up, mismanaged in a way that has kind of ruined it. And there's a kind of a risk of something like that happening here. I think the people who are kind of working at the museum are going to do everything they can to try to make sure that the things are preserved.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think I'm sure it's an expensive endeavor, and if the person who believed in it is no longer who believed in it and was wealthy is no longer kind of running it, then it's a little tricky.
Right.
So.
Yep. Anyway, sad thing, and I do want to mention one thing as a tie-in to our previous topic. The latest entry in their blog, which is from only a week ago, is a profile on computing about someone called Wes Cherry, who's apparently involved in creating Microsoft Solitaire.
Oh, cool.
Interesting. Okay.
It all comes together.
That's right. Well, and I guess my thing is actually also a Microsoft thing as well. So let me take a second to put this up here. Okay, so my thing is that Microsoft has open sourced GW Basic, so that's interesting. So the GW Basic was the basic interpreter that they used that you could get with the early DOSes. Let's see, what does it say about when this came about? The basic interpreter derived from IBM's Advanced Basic, Basic A, which was itself a part of Microsoft Basic. So circles and circles. But the cool thing is basically that this is the actual source code for the interpreter, and there's a big blog post about it that sort of talks about what it is and why there's no C source code and that kind of stuff, because it was actually all written in assembly language. And if you go to look at the actual GitHub repository, there's basically just a whole bunch of assembler files. So you can look in them and just see what let's see, what's a good one to look at. I think there was one called main. Here we go. But so you can just go look in the contents of the assembly files and you see things like originally written on the PDP-10 from February 9th to April 9th, 1975. Bill Gates wrote a lot of stuff. Paul Allen wrote a lot of other stuff and fast code. It highlighted. It's funny,
so
actually. Yeah, I mean, this looks snarkier than it would need to actually because of the auto highlighting of and. So it kind of looks like, well, Bill Gates wrote a bunch of slow code. Paul Allen wrote the actual fast code.
Suck it, Bill.
But yeah, it's pretty interesting. And it's kind of cool to see, just like the various there are some comments that are kind of funny. Like I just was sort of skimming through to try to find things that seemed amusing, and found a call to proc check that says don't allow any funny business with the existing program. When I actually tracked that down, and it's actually this is I don't know how many, like 30 different source code files, so it's actually a little hard to track things down, although GitHub lets you search at least for labels across files. But apparently this is basically just checking to make sure that the file's not protected in some way. If it's locked, then you can't change it. But in the source code it was called funny business, so I thought that was kind of cool.
I see a check for pathetic case comment a few lines down.
Where is it?
Right there.
686.
Oh yeah, line 686.
686. Nice. Who knows what that means? But I think that is pretty cool though. And also, I mean, this is actual Bill Gates code at a time when he still coded. So anyway, I think that's it's interesting. I'm not sure that there's much more to say about it except to go explore it, because it's I think that will give them positive feedback for doing more such things if people seem excited and start, committing pull requests and things. Okay, let's see. Now I've lost my screen. Oh, that's it. Look at that. We have very little news, apparently. Okay, so I guess that's about that's it for the items of interest in news section.
We learned our lesson from last show.
That's right. Apparently, I don't think I have. There's nothing new to report on the upcoming shows as far as I know, so I think I'll skip over that. Though, if there are things that we should be announcing, do give us feedback, and we will try to announce them in time for them to be relevant. So I guess with that, a word from our sponsor, during which we will figure out what is Bitsbox. Oh yeah, I discovered that we'd already used the Forbin project on Blu-ray.
Well, we should use it again. Keep that computer in line.
Yeah. So I think Carrington, the Bitsbox thing was yours.
Was it? Cool.
Originally.
Way to go, me. I can talk about it.
Was
Wonder
it
what
nice?
it is. Oh, look at it. Oh, yes, a subscription thing. I can talk about this. Sure.
Okay. Cool. Right. And we're back. And so today's host retro computing gift idea is the Bitsbox subscription. The Bitsbox subscription for kids. And Carrington can tell us about that since he was the one who found the link.
I don't know anything about it. You're wrong. No, I'm kidding. It's a subscription program for kids to learn how to code. So it's neat. Basically, how it works is every month you or your child gets box in the mail, postal mail, and in it are these cards that have puzzles that you have to solve, like oh no, the aliens are coming and abducting all the cows. Write software to make all the cows avoid the aliens zapper race or whatever. And it has some keys on how to do that, and then code words, and basically then the kids have to write an app to solve the problem. And so there's different projects for different levels. The idea is you start from somebody who doesn't even know the concept of what a program would be and tries to really gamify the whole thing. And you do it online, so you don't need anything special on a computer. You just need a computer that can get on the web, and all the materials sent to you are just paper things and instructions and stuff and neat cards. And then when the kids do it online, they can share it with other people or look at other people's examples or whatever. And you can do it on phones as well as computers. And it's designed to be really like kid friendly, very friendly towards like any gender. It talks about how like it's supposed to be really engaging for like a young mind who will get bored with things really quickly. And so it was an interesting approach. Like when we were kids, it was like, here's a computer. It is difficult. This is basic. It's got the word beginner in it. So therefore go to town, figure it out, write your own stuff, go outside and play. And, kids are exposed to a lot of fast moving video nowadays, and retro computers might not be the best way to introduce somebody to game playing. So it's a kind of neat thing. I like the idea. I like the mentality behind it. Like they're going to engage kids, not be specific to like just guys or specific cultures or whatever, and then try to make it really engaging to kids who will get bored fast, make it online, and teach the fundamentals of coding. And I think just like when we were kids, it's not about learning a specific language. Even in university, it doesn't matter what language you learn. It's just the fact that you learn the ideas of coding will make you a better computer user, and will make you a source of tech support for all of us when we get really old. Perfect. So it's important for us to invest in our children so that our own stuff works when we're grandparents. So anyway, it's like $17 a month or something like that. It'll look kind of neat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, this does seem cool. And it's quite possible that there are a number of people who are looking for ways to occupy their children.
Oh, yes. That might be something that's come up recently. Well, here you go.
Yeah. So, this does seem like something that they can kind of do on their own, and then they can show you their thing that they made.
Yeah, that is supposed to be the purpose. It's not a thing that you do with your kid. It's supposed to be like, give this and the child can do it in a safe way because it's online. It's just in this one walled garden sort of thing. So it's like a safe thing to point a young kid at. So.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Do you know sort of what the intended age range is?
I know so little. I'm going to say 13 to fetus.
Okay, it says Bitsbox is designed for 6 to 12-year-olds.
I was correct.
You were pretty close.
Roughly.
Basically.
I round down to fetus. But you might have a really smart baby.
I'm going to get that embroidered on a throw pillow.
I round down.
I round
I
down.
round down to fetus. I'm
Like
coming up with
aging
all the
like
show titles this time, folks.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So when you're done with that, you can turn your site on. You can turn your sites to eBay, and Blake has things for you to look at on eBay.
I do.
I'm not
Let
going to
me,
buy them. I'm not going to buy them. I am out of space here.
I'm going to attempt to share my screen. I have a series of tabs set up. Let's see if we can successfully do this again.
Oh, actually, maybe this is also one time to mention that as you're speaking, do what you can to make it possible to cut out the parts that refer to I'm putting things on my screen now and stuff like that. So it's fine to say them, but if there's spaces around them, then they can be chopped.
Gotcha.
Not that much space.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good that you take constructive criticism, but wow.
All right. Okay, so first item I've got here is kind of an interesting one. It's not exactly a computer. It may not have much digital happening in it at all. But it is a vintage dialer, Comtel Broadcasting Corporation, a CBC 7000 model number dialer 6. I'd never heard of this thing before, and looking at it, I had no idea what it was. And there are a variety of pictures on the eBay auction. It has a tape recording deck, 2 actually, a little keypad. It looks like a phone line coming out of it. And digging around a little bit, I found out what it is. There was a little bit of Twitter discussion that I believe sprung from this auction itself, and someone points out that some of the notes that it has an 8-pin DIN connector as well as the phone connector. They couldn't find a date, but it looks like the conclusion is that it is a answering machine, but basically a push answering machine. It has a tape deck that when the connection is made, it plays a message to the person who answered the call, and then the other deck records their response. And so I don't know if it's a polling situation or some sort of a automated survey system, but the person on Twitter, I've got the link in the notes, found a photograph of a manual to one of these units, and it doesn't give a great deal of information, but it seems like it's labeled computer phone dialing system. So it's I guess that's an automated. I can't imagine anything worse than having this thing call you and expect to have you talk back to it. I don't know what the use case was, but has anyone seen a device like this before out there?
No.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
It just seems such an odd item that, and clearly it's from the past. I don't think there's any question that it's a vintage device with its analog tapes, but kind of interesting.
Yeah. This, by the way, if so the person who posted about this is Foon Turing, I think,
Yes.
and that's a great Twitter account to follow. So it's
right?
at Foon.
Yep. App Foon is great. I agree.
FOONE. Yeah. So
I'm actually not. I had not come across that account. That's great. I followed.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, moving on. This one it's interesting. I don't think it's quite as much of a find as it would seem from the title. Apple IIc computer, monitor, manuals, discs, original packaging unused. We may remember there was a famous, about 10 years ago, a 2C that was never opened before, went for $2,500 or something, and there was unboxing, and it made the rounds in the press. And so for only right now, this is at $750 starting bid. But digging around and wondering why the starting bid wasn't higher, there's a note that says, "My mother acquired this in the mid-'80s, planning to use it for word processors, but she was not prepared for the setup and programming." I don't know if she needed to do much programming to word process, but maybe she feared it was a Triton, Um,
Always near the Triton.
at any rate, he goes on to mention that his uncle loaded some simple software on it for her, but she never used it. So it's unused in quotes, and I probably would have passed on it. It's this isn't that much of an item to point out, but in the item specs it says featured refinements: Apple IIgs. Bundle description: fully restored and retro bright 2GS computer with RAM upgrade, ADB mouse, ADB keyboard, floppy drive. So I don't know exactly what this is. It's either you could order it and you might get a surprise, or maybe the seller just doesn't really know what's happening. But
I think, my guess is eBay tries to help you. And I think that goes wrong for specific things like this. So if you try to list something, eBay will say, like, here are, if what you're listing is one of these things, like, click on that. And it will fill in all those details for you. And actually, sometimes I've had it be kind of difficult to even fix that once it gets set.
Yeah, it's been quite a while. I've done quite a bit of selling on eBay, but it has been several years since I'm sure the system has changed. This is probably what's happening here, but still, it looks like clearly it's a rather good condition 2C, but not it doesn't have the Cupertino air still inside the box, so you don't get that treat. All right, and my the last item I found, it caught my eye, the design and size of the CRT. It says vintage 6141-4 monochrome display monitor, Conrack Corporation, and it looked like it actually reminded me of a screen you might see in the control panel in war games with a little handle on the side. It looks very small, and actually, even though that's not quite what it is, it may well be the type of thing that was used in such a setup. Because when I dug around a bit, and the auction itself, doesn't say much at all, but as I dug online, to see what's going on with this, I found a document, a PDF, the first sentence of which caught my attention clearly. The video monitor described in this article is the most exceptional monochrome video monitor I have ever encountered. And so that was the beginning of an extraordinarily long PDF document where this individual got hold of one of these monitors, new old stock, not connected to this auction, and he's laid out the schematics of the boards involved. He created a power supply. It uses a non-standard voltage.
Oh my goodness!
He explains the different, like he's got scopes showing the levels of operation of various inputs and outputs on the thing, and there's a great deal of high quality images. And what it turns out this is, thanks to this article, is it's a screen that was designed for use in avionics applications. So, like in a transport plane from some time ago, a passenger plane from some time ago. He mentions the components are military spec type, are of outstanding quality. No expense was spared in making it as far as its reliability. It has no electrolytic capacitors. It uses a military-grade axial tantalum capacitor. So basically, it looks like this is a screen that was designed to withstand, just simply not to fail. And of course, that makes sense in a capacity of being used in avionics, because you can't have your displays going out. And so it sounds like this would be the sort of thing that would also be sitting in a missile silo in war games with its little slide in, slide out handles. It doesn't look like the voltage or inputs or anything that any retro computing fan is going to want to spend time interfacing with their computer. But given that it's a CRT and it's in our ballpark, I found it sort of fascinating that to learn some information about this. And I've given the link for both the PDF document as well as the auction. But going back to the auction, it looks like $95 buy it now. So if somebody wanted to play around with it, although to me it has a $202 shipping in the
they've got to ship it by airplane, of course. So
that's true, and you're rolling the dice as far as their displays. So it's this screen is not going to fail if you can make it work, if you can get it connected.
If you get to survive the eBay shipping.
Yeah.
Real test.
We would arrive cracked.
Mil spec. Ha, we'll just see.
Right. Yeah, they never expected it to have to go through UPS. Indeed. But yeah, I thought it was interesting. And that's the last item I have today.
Cool.
I think it looks really nice. I really do like it. I do kind of. I wonder if the shipping thing is an error or whatever. But to me, it also says it's like a $200 shipping, so it might be worth contacting the seller.
Yeah, the guy, the PDF article. I mean, I'd like to actually have a chat with Dr. H. Holden, who went deep into this rabbit hole of this screen. He sounds like a person you wouldn't mind having a cup of coffee with. But he's writing about a 14-inch model, so I don't know if they don't really talk about. I guess 14 is in the name, so this thing is. I assumed it was like a 6-inch, just because of the way the case is structured. But perhaps it's larger. And if you look at the case, I mean, that might be steel or something. It's got. If I go back. For the YouTube listeners, it's in a sturdy enclosure with those side handles, and the latches of the handles are bolted through. It could be that this thing weighs an incredible amount. I don't know.
It may well. I mean, a 14-inch tube by itself weighs a lot,
right?
And if you put it in a bunch of steel,
right?
Doesn't it make you? Looking at the image that is on this page, doesn't it feel like it's a small screen? Like it gripped me as something that was. I don't know if it's because it looks like it's more of a wider aspect ratio by some slight degree than a 4.3 CRT, but something made me feel like it was small, but I guess not.
Yeah. Well, also those curves, there's curves on the sort of bezel around the screen, and they are very pronounced. I mean, it seems like they're very, very slow sloping and obscure kind of a lot of the space.
It's certainly a rugged unit. But yeah, I
was thinking that. I mean, like when I saw this, what I was thinking was, oh, it looks like something you would see in the bunker in Lost or whatever.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
So, and this one's not. It's weird. So there's two of these on eBay at the moment, but they're not related.
Well, it looks like the person. I saw another mention.
It's the same thing. I can't tell.
That I'm not sure about. Yeah, I see. There's another one down there. I found the PDF document here mentions he got it new old stock. Another lesser article I found out there was somebody saying they got it new old stock as well. So maybe there's a big surplus of these things that some warehouse is selling. It could be.
Yeah, because there's another seller who's got it for $168. Yeah. But doesn't list any shipping stuff for me. So I'm like, is he even really available? Like, but I only brought that one up because that one has photographs that show the size of it. Like, they've put down a measuring thing for it.
Right.
Okay. With these photos on the second auction that I've clicked onto the screen here, you can see. Here's the date, January. Okay, January 1989. So this was at least sold in 1989. You get closer views of the case, and it looks sturdy.
It looks crazy sturdy.
It looks like an ammo box. It actually looks like an ammo box as far as the construction.
Right.
It's.
I dig it a lot. Like the aesthetics of this thing really appeal to me. This is very very cool monitor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it doesn't have any as far as inputs. I mean, I guess there is a video in. It looks like a BNC sort of. I guess it does have a BNC connector. Maybe it's apparently the voltage is a little wonky. It's not a standard, what you might expect. But the fellow in the article built a power supply. But it looks like the video might be serviceable. That might be. I mean, how bizarre can the video feed be? So.
Paul will find out when he buys it.
Yeah, this is. I really do like this. But it does seem like there's no the other auction seems not to give any indication on shipping for me either. So.
Right. Okay. Let's see.
Yeah, so I wonder what happened. I wonder how that works. Like if you just say, okay, buy it now, and they can't compute the shipping, are you obliged to just take whatever they say shipping is? Okay, it's fine. It's $3,000.
It's weird though, because we represent 3 different countries though, so they can't calculate the shipping for anything.
Right. And I've never been in that situation on eBay. The person has, I guess he's had like 1,300 interactions on eBay and 99.4 positive. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it might be interesting to follow up just to but it's I mean, it looks like it would be a great thing to have sitting on a shelf, always displaying something that
on a low shelf or on
old,
yes,
that something that looks old, something old that is a vision of what it was believed the future would be like. Some sort of this futuristic computery thing. But yes, you might want to put it down low in case it falls and crushes your cat.
Right.
Yeah. So
okay, cool.
That's me.
All right.
Stop sharing.
I guess Carrington, you have the next set.
Oh yes, okay. So I've got a couple of games caught my eye because it's just I love really old Mac games, and this first one is As Old as They Come, and it comes up on eBay every once in a while. It's $600 essentially, and it's Alice Through the Looking Glass, which was basically, for all intents and purposes, the first Mac game. So promoted by Apple and then sold by Apple, and I think the only game ever sold by Apple, except there's that one that you're always chasing, isn't there, Paul? The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald or something like that.
That was for the Apple II.
Okay.
They sold some games for the Apple II, but this was the Mac one.
For the Mac, yeah. And so this one comes up every once in a while. It's beautiful. It's not really a great game, but this is a fully sealed one. So if you collect super old Mac games, this is as old as you can collect, and it is still new and sealed and shrink wrapped in its beautiful box. And it was lovely packaging for this thing. Came it basically looked like a book. The game was originally going to be called Alice, and then got changed to Through the Looking Glass, I think, because they said there's a database or something like that already with the trademark. And so Apple's like, well, then Through the Looking Glass. That's an Alice kind of related thing. It's essentially a Dalek game. It's like you play Alice on a chessboard, and you got to capture all the other pieces as they walk around. But this is a lovely, totally shrink wrapped sealed one, and that doesn't come out much. So
it's actually, I see that there's the Picasso Mac logo sticker sealing it. It's also cellophane, like it's sealed.
Yeah, it's also shrink wrapped. Yeah.
Wow. If that's the case, and that this is because it's the Lisa and Mac version. This was Apple wrote this, for the Lisa, and then it came to the Mac. I have the program on my Mac Plus. But yeah, the fact that this was a Lisa game that Apple made
runs on Lisa.
Does it? What I thought it said both. I thought it
Macintosh
said,
and Lisa. Yeah.
Okay. If that's the case, and I think the price is probably not.
Oh sure, yeah. I think it's like
for a collector.
For a collector who wants to get like the one of this, like this is it. Like this is the first of the first Mac games, and it's neat. So the physical game does come up quite a bit, but I don't remember seeing this edition all shrink wrapped before. So $600, buy it now. I'm also going to have quick links to the Folklore site, Andy Hertzfeld's site, which is really good, and they've got a great write up about this game. So you can kind of learn about a guy named Steve Capps is the fellow who wrote it for the Lisa, and Steve Jobs was like, hey, we're going to get him on the Mac team. He's actually good. But then he was on the Lisa team, and then they ported the game over, and then promoted the game that they said it was coming and it's awesome, and then did like no actual promotion for the game, so it kind of went nowhere. But it is what it is. Welcome to Macintosh gaming. Nothing has ever changed. But the Folklore site is a great site, and they have a good write up on Alice. And then also we have a link to Alice X, a very 90s looking cheesy site where the game has an online in color playable version of it, because they ported this game for its 25th anniversary to iOS, and then there's a JavaScript online version, so you can just play it online. This shows that I just won the game with a score of 690. Just saying, don't miss.
Very nice.
That website not a difficult game. Kind of hurts the eyes.
The website is wonderful and lovely. No, you're correct. It hurts the eyes. So, but anyway, it exists at onedoto.com, and then you can. There's links to buy the game on the Apple iStore. So that's my first choice. $600. I think buy it now.
So a couple of things about that. I think so. If I'm not mistaken, this game came up before as the source of like the font that pervaded all IBM games.
Exactly, that this font, because
Right.
there was the game itself didn't use up the whole floppy disk, which I was reminded by this because I read the folklore site, and so when it went to ship, there was extra space, so the font was embedded in the game, but also just appeared as a font on the disk. It turns out, so when we were reading about how they must have ripped it out of the game, it looks like they just could have taken it off the disk. And then there was also a maze game called Amazing put on the disk as well, so you get 2 games in one for $600
If you open it.
if you open it,
Yeah.
which you should
Don't
do
open
it.
it.
Release it.
Don't
Release
open
it. This one is pretty rare if it's this version in shrink wrap, so
Yeah.
I'd open it anyway. I'm just saying. That's my first choice. $600. Paul will buy this, so you can't have it. Second choice: if $600 is too much for you, I'm willing to sell you a different game for $500. So this is another incredibly early game for the Mac called Legacy. Another shrink wrap game, I think by a different. Same seller. This seller comes up every once in a while. Yeah. I like the seller stuff. I wanna own all the seller stuff. So Challenger Software. This is a fun game. It's a graphical text adventure, a really early one for the Mac 128K games. So Legacy, and it's a nice shrink wrapped copy of the game. I dig it. It's not cheap at $500, but super early Mac games that are shrink wrapped are often not cheap. And this is actually a good game. Alice is not a good game. You'll play it for 5 minutes and go, okay, I'm done with this game. Legacy is fun. I've never completed it. I played like half of it. So this reminded me that it was a game I was enjoying and I should get back to. We'll also maybe have a link to Macintosh Garden where you can download the game and not spend anything. So the 2 versions you can have is one, shrink wrapped, sealed, $500, or free for Macintosh Garden. Just download it and play it. And has some nice images to show you how the game works. It's a graphics on top, text on bottom, sort of very early Mac game. My memory was quite a good one, so I recommend it.
Yeah, and I actually very rarely look at these old sort of like classic Mac games, but seeing those screens really does bring a rush of nostalgia.
Yep.
There was something about that sharp black and white.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I dig it. So that's it. I never owned either of these games and probably won't. But I will likely download a copy of Legacy and play it and try to complete it. So at least I get something out of this. Paul will buy both these games.
Yeah. The seller does often have. He is a collector and sort of takes care of this stuff, and
but knows
often,
what it's worth. You're not going to get a deal.
Yeah, right, exactly. But it is often really interesting to look through the stuff listed under that account. So particularly for Apple II stuff, some Mac stuff, but a lot of Apple II collectible stuff too.
Right. So that's it. That's what I got.
Cool. Okay, and then I have. Well, Jack, did you have anything you wanted to put in?
No, it's good.
Okay.
He's too busy clicking buy it now on all our choices.
That's right.
That's right.
Wahaha.
Gonna snake him away from Paul.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see. Let me find my screen.
It's right in front of you.
Oh, there it is.
Looking at it.
Okay. Okay, so I have a few. I don't think I'm going to talk about all the ones that I found, but so the first one is Amazing Vintage Apple Computer Museum Lot plus Mac, Apple II, Lisa Mac, XL Rare is the title. You can buy it if you want for $35,000.
Sold.
And you have to go pick it up.
Oh.
There are bids, but there is a reserve. The current bid is at $6,100, basically. But what it is basically like the end state of a Mac hardware collection, if you just want to jump straight there.
I like how in our show notes you list this as cheat code for Apple hardware completist.
Yeah.
Which is very apt.
So it's interesting to see because it really does have like a lot of the stuff that you might want to get. I mean, like,
and it's got the good ones.
Yeah.
Like if you want to be like an old Apple collector and you think, oh, these are the ones I'd really like to get, it's got those.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
it does really.
So yeah, if there's some Apple model that you're thinking of, it's probably here.
Yeah.
And so I can see the different shots show, and there's another side of the room that has a bunch of other things too. But so there's a Lisa 2. There is an original Mac. There is an Apple II. I guess probably an Apple II Plus. I don't know. But it's set up with the little security monitor and the disk drives on the side and everything that you sort of expect. It's got the Apple CD player, the Apple IIc bag.
But it's got like an either an 800 or I think an 840 AV without all the weird discoloration. Like it's got a glorious looking 840 AV that like I haven't seen one look that good in forever. They come up super yellow on eBay.
Yeah.
Is that a tower unit?
Yeah, it's the mini tower in probably the third, like bottom shelf between the
Zaxxon?
Mac under Zaxxon. There's a Zaxxon, or is that like code? Oh no, not under Zaxxon. That would be a 950. Next picture beside the bottom shelf to the right of that.
Got it. By the molar.
Yes, exactly. That's an 840 AV. And usually because it's a metal horseshoe is the middle, that stays a nice color. And the faceplate was like one of the things that yellows more than anything Apple ever made. I don't even understand why it gets so mustardy, that particular model. And it's one of my favorite computers. So that's gorgeous. Like just so many great pieces here. Yeah. Though weirdly also on one of the shelves, like an IBM XT, and you just got to know this guy's like, well, I was in college, I was experimenting. like, what is up with that one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's next to that?
I don't know.
I think that's the weird thing that Greg was talking about. That's the Triton.
The Triton.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's totally.
There is in the list. I mean, like it's a long list of things that are in here.
So many.
He's got a 5.25-inch external drive sitting on a Mac 2, which is interesting. From Apple 5.25.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I think. Well, I think that came up. Like there is one. You need a card for it, but I think there's an interface card for the Mac 2 and for the SE.
But it's got that weird butterfly keyboard that Apple made that separated out. Like so many things that are just bringing back all these memories. Or like, oh, that and that, and it is an unreal collection.
Yeah, so it is a fun game to just kind of go through and point out all the things.
How much is it? You said?
I think it's so it's $35,000 if you were to buy it now and figure out some way to get it.
Is that the shipping or is that the price of the lot?
That's the price of the lot.
I kid.
Let's see, and it doesn't come necessarily. It doesn't come with the racks, although you could talk to them about it. I mean, so. My feeling is,
what's the market for this though?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm wondering. I mean, like these are all well taken care of in good shape.
And I get why you would want to piece it out because, like, what a pain to have to sell all these things individually.
Yeah.
But who's got this massive desire to own all this, $35,000, and not half of this already?
Well, and it's those last two that are the sticking point. I mean, like, so, I have many of these things. Many of them are not as nice, but I have many of them. So like, it's not, I wouldn't be a good target audience, even if
unless you were going to then sell your old ones. And so this becomes up to recoup some of the cost and this becomes an upgrade. But still, I think the target market is small.
It's not very often. I mean, there can't be many people that are thinking, oh, I'm hoping to start an Apple computer museum and now I can do that. Or I guess I don't know.
You're recently single. And
you're extremely well-to-do nostalgia nerd, and you have a room in your new mansion you want to make all moody.
Or a museum, or somebody who wants to set up a museum or whatever, because these are like museum quality. This is ready to display.
Yeah.
There's the Pascal poster.
There's everything. I keep going back and forth with these photos, seeing stuff. This is remarkable.
Yeah.
Thank goodness we're an audio-only podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it would be right. That could, if we had a sort of more Apple focused podcast, we could just spend a whole episode talking about everything on the shelf in order. But anyway, so I think it's interesting. It's kind of fun to look at the pictures. I think this really is essentially, here's my collection that has taken me 30 plus years to acquire. It hasn't been a museum, although I suppose it's sort of a museum to people who visit this person. So anyway, okay. Interesting.
He does mention that there are two, I guess we were wondering about the other computer. There are two CPM machines in the pile. So that is probably one of the unidentifiable units,
right?
CPM unit.
Yeah, probably. The and I saw a K-Pro 2 in there too. So that's going to be one of those two.
Yep.
But okay. Right. Next one. Moving on. This is a really weird looking Mach 3 CH Products joystick. So
Why is that weird looking?
doesn't this look like a wireframe, like a 3D rendering software version? Like,
Oh, I guess because it's so pale, it doesn't have any
There's-
color to it. Yeah. Okay. I see what you're
there's
saying.
no
Yes.
color on it. It's just white. I've never seen such a thing. So in the description, it says rare white button platinum joystick in pristine condition. And so I guess it's possible it actually existed.
Or someone
because of
swapped the
who's
buttons.
selling it. Oh, so does Blake?
Yeah.
You got one of these?
I actually have one. I actually have one. They had a Hayes. They used to, you remember, they were called Hayes, and then they became CH Products. They made the Mach 3 with the button on top for the 2E originally, and it was beige with an orange and brown
Right.
button.
Yeah,
color
that's the
scheme.
one that I had.
And
That's the normal one.
I had that also, but for when the platinum machines, like when the Apple IIgs came out, they sold a platinum version, and I think I have the platinum one now. I had one when I had my GS in '86. That was just I think I went and bought it in the Apple dealer store. But yes, earlier in the 2C in '84, I think that was back then. It was only the beige, brown, and orange. But I don't know how rare these are, but maybe there
There are two.
Yeah.
And actually, I think the one I have, in fact, is the same one that I had with the GS back then. So really, I've only bought one. So I don't really have a feel for the rarity. But anyway, it still works.
Interesting. Yeah.
And it's a joystick I really like. Like, that's a joystick I have often played with and enjoyed. Like, I do recommend the Mach 3. I like it.
Still looks to me like the whole thing is much more white than the one that Blake held up.
Well, that
it
could be
does look-
also the camera.
It could be.
Yeah, it could. Well, you know what it could be is if you took. I've sometimes. Well, I try not to do this too much, but
Just
sometimes
white balance. Boom.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you adjust the warmth of this item you're selling, maybe it's not as I don't sit there and try to make my yellow items look not yellowed, but sometimes the lighting makes them look much more yellow than they are. Maybe he went the other way.
Yeah. I should say. So there's a couple of photos that are a little less sort of like direct white light, where basically what he's doing is showing you that it calibrates, and he's got gloves on as he's doing this, and this is the Retro Bright King. So I'm just wondering if this was just a joystick that just got left retro.
Oh,
Retrobrighted.
I mean, yeah, okay. This
But
was the actual orange and brown one.
Right. Anyway, it's interesting looking though.
Yes, I agree.
So.
Yeah. That's funny.
Okay, let's see. What other things to have? So I guess if I'm going to skip things, I need to not keep switching over to tabs. But maybe I'll just sort of quickly mention this next one it's a TRS-80 model 4P that's new in box, or not new. Well, it's new. It's in good condition in the box. So I've never seen the box before. That's the main thing that's interesting about this. It's all
Neither
still
have I.
packaged up.
Yeah.
It's somehow managed to stay pretty much unyellowed in the box, so that suggests that there's some kind of external factor involved in the yellowing, because these things just turn orange if they're out in the out in
Oh
the
my
world.
gosh, yeah.
So anyway, I thought it was kind of neat. So if you want to just see at least what the box looks like, this is the place to do it. $549 buy it now from the person in Nova Scotia who has all the good stuff.
It's Sci-Fi Man. Yes. Nice. Comes up often on our show.
Yep.
A couple of sellers have the stuff that we like.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we're not exactly promoting them as good business owners, but they have good stuff, and they might well be good business owners. 100% positive feedback suggests this is a good business owner. I had this. If you want a slightly cheaper TRS-80 Model 4P, there's one without the box that has the DOS manual and some programming books, a little bit more yellowing, but it's kind of like a nice big set.
I have not ever found it appealing. I'm not a fan of the 4P.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah, I
Just
have
the look of it. I don't dig it.
I agree with you, Carrington. Yeah, I love the Model 4.
Yep.
And yeah, the 4P. I think
Is the roundness of it or something? Or
yeah, they started doing the roundness thing, and that actually is why I've actually never liked the aesthetic of the model. It's rounded also for the Tandy 1000. Tandy 1000 was the most popular gaming PC, back in that era. But the rounding, I don't like the keyboard rounding. I don't like that. Yeah.
And when that thing is closed up, it looks like a cooler.
Oh, that's right.
It should be full of beer.
Yeah. How disappointing that it's only full of pixels.
Right.
Yeah, it's funny with the 1000 because you're right. It was such a popular gaming machine for a while. Mm-hmm. There's this certain era where you can see a lot of games where on it it'll say IBM and Tandy compatible. Like it's just like it was specifically calling that out. There was that era where they were just that was the gaming thing.
There was a YouTube video I saw that kind of historical that I ran across, and they were pointing out, and when you think about it, of course, it had to be true. Looking at the price for what you got with the Tandy 1000 with its motherboard, 16 color graphics versus buying an IBM PC with CGA, it was just much cheaper, and the games were better on it. So it was a huge machine.
But again, I didn't like the aesthetics of it. Like even at the time, there was something about it where I was like, that does not appeal to me.
Yeah. No.
And I liked earlier Tandy things. Like I'm not anti-Tandy. Sure. I dug Tandy, but just not that. It's fun to say anti-Tandy. I'm gonna say
it really is.
It also sounds like this is my anti-Tandy and my uncle Carlos, and they're here to play some games.
They shifted away from that melted, rounded aesthetic when the 1000 when the 1000 TL came out, and I actually bought one. Like I actually, as soon as they switched it.
Yeah, I remember there was the TL and the SL or whatever they were. But
the TL had a nice angular front, and the keyboard was like a Model M. It didn't have the little rounded. It looked like a IBM board. Yeah.
Yep.
That's a nice little machine too.
Yeah, I think so. I have one of these, and I kind of sought one out because I wanted something. I wanted something that ran this, like TRS-80 software, but I didn't want to devote a desk to it because I didn't care about it that much.
Okay.
So this one you can sort of pack away and get confused with your cooler or whatever.
Occasionally you go on a picnic and go, I brought the 4P again. I hate when that happens.
That's right.
Now I'm going to have to lie on the beach as if it's a 2C and see if I can do some
You're out on the rapids in your tube with your 4P.
Chuck me a beer. Can't do that, but I can hook you up with this amazing game.
This is a dancing demon.
Always spotting these in Starbucks. Somebody in there with this latte. You got a 4P on the table.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so apparently my next auction has been bought.
Oh,
so I don't know
by
if I should
you?
talk about it.
Did you sell yourself the thing?
It's kind of interesting. Well, let me just. I'm going to quickly scan over it to see if there's an indication of who made it.
Because it was a new thing, so maybe there's also more of them out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Actually, that's what I could do. I could just check to see if this seller has other things that are this. No.
Okay.
I'll quickly talk about it anyway, though. So this next thing got sold already, but there may be others, and it's a CPM ready, like credit card sized Z80 machine. So it's called the ZMCC or ZRCC, whatever. It's a little single board computer. It has a USB connector on one side and a flash card connector on the other, and an actual, I think, 22 megahertz overclocked Z80 chip. And so if you want to just have a nice little portable CPM machine that can interface with modern things, this is kind of cool. It's kind of neat. It has a little power. It's just basically a terminal, so like you connect it to a USB. You connect it via USB to a computer or terminal or something to talk to it. I don't think there's any sort of graphics out.
Mhm.
But
Interesting.
anyway, seems like it was kind of neat. But anyway, there was one on eBay. It was sold, but it's possible that this seller will have others in the future because it is newly fabricated. Except I assume for the chip. I was kind of wondering about that actually. Can you just overclock, historical Z80 chip 22 megahertz?
Can you? Yes.
Yes.
I don't know how long that would last.
Yeah. But anyway, it'll work at least for a little bit. I don't know. I don't have much to say about that. But next thing I had is it's an NEC PC. What is it? 8001.
2001.
Yeah. So I think we've talked about these a couple of times in the past. I don't know very much about them. The main computer part is the PC 8001, but I think the thing that's interesting about this is that it has this other stuff. It has this I/O box, and it has a disk drive box, and it has some manuals. So, I mean, I guess these things would be pretty hard to piece together on your own now. So, if you have interest.
The thing about this, from a vintage gaming perspective, it's interesting. The PC 8001 was a very popular machine, I've learned, in Japan, and it was one of the systems that it was high resolution but low colors. Like it had 4 or 8 colors, but it had the 640 pixels across. When a lot of systems, weren't really. It didn't basically. I don't think it even had like a 320 by 200 mode. It was high resolution, and so you got these games that were very intricately dithered. The games Thexter and Sylpheed are direct descendants. They started on the 8001, and that aesthetic, which is like you can basically have a great many colors because you're dithering such such high resolution on the horizontal. It gives it a really distinctive look, these games. And when they ported them, they would, whenever possible, keep the high resolution. Like the 2GS version of Thexter uses the rarely used in games, 640 mode. So it's a big, it's definitely a landmark machine as far as games out of Japan for a certain period, which I think makes it, notable.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't been paying a whole lot of attention to these, although I think I would have seen them come up. And occasionally they have, but I don't think I've ever seen this much stuff coming with it. So
I remember when I used to do the podcast No Quarter, where we talked about arcade games, and then we at one point talked about Lode Runner. I don't even know if it was an episode or just Mike and I talking about Lode Runner. I started going off and playing all the versions of Lode Runner I could find, and I played the version of Lode Runner for the PC 8001, and that's one of only 2 games for the PC 8001 I played, and the other one was Princess Tomato in the Salad Kingdom. and if that's not a Japanese game, I don't know what it is. You were like Sir Cucumber, and yeah, like it was great. It's like, and then anyway, so I played that one. Those are the 2 games I played for that system.
Nice.
excellent.
Yeah.
So this one, somebody's bid on this already. So $300 is the minimum it will go for.
I was trying to find, before we move off, just an example, a screen. Someone in our comments, Christopher, commented that some of the 1-bit graphics, as we were talking about it here, are amazing for this machine. And I think I have an example here. Actually, yes. Let me share my screen.
Okay. Also, I think that comment is probably in relation to the Mac games.
Oh, well, you're still right, Christopher. Sorry.
You continue to be right.
Yes.
Christopher's got staying powder.
Staying powder?
Did I say staying powder? You got staying powder. You throw it, and it's like stick. It's like a ninja thing.
Yeah, there's an article, Gaming Computers of Japan, that talks about the 88,000 series, and the 8,000 is one of the earlier units in that. But some of the graphics are, and I'm showing this on the screen for the YouTube watchers, but the very precise dithering can be seen. And it's not unlike how EGA was often used because it had sort of a high resolution, but somehow the people that were writing these games in Japan, I think they all collectively did a more artistic approach in rendering these things. I guess there's not a lot of examples here, but I was just wanting to show a little bit of.
There's one. That's you're right. There's not a lot of examples. There is
Well,
precisely one example.
the article goes into it, but yeah. So
The site at the top, it says Retronauts. Is that related to? There's a podcast, the Retronauts podcast, is there not?
there is. I'm thinking this probably is related. I think I've come across the connected blog as well. Yes, this is a Retronauts article.
Okay.
But,
I think I've listened to. I think that's a podcast that I've listened to a couple times and mean to listen to more of, and then haven't. But I think Ben Edwards appears on it sometimes.
Cool.
Yes, I listen with some frequency, but I don't listen to every episode.
Yeah, because we're too busy recording these monsters.
Well, we're going to keep this one short.
Yeah, that's right. Any minute now, we'll start keeping it short. Okay. Maybe I'll skip that one.
Next on the Intellivisionaries.
Yeah. Actually, I guess the next. Well, okay. So I'll mention quickly. There's not much to say about the next one I was going to mention, but it's a 20th anniversary Macintosh, and this. I don't know what I think. I still have not figured out what I think about this machine exactly. It looks kind of nice. I don't know if it's particularly fast. It was kind of originally built to be a collector's item. So all the collectors want them, and they cost a lot of money usually. This particular one isn't actually all that expensive. It's starting at $350, which seems really low actually. It seems to be working and have all the pieces. It doesn't have the box, and there's a like a scuff somewhere that they've.
Is it working though? How do you know that? Says it's sold as is and doesn't have a power supply.
Oh, okay. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we don't know if it's working.
Yeah.
And I also don't see the speaker. Is the speaker here?
I don't see the speaker. That was a big part of it. That weird bass Bose thing.
That Bose thing, right?
Yeah. Okay, so maybe this is maybe this is the 20th anniversary Macintosh for people who can't afford a 20th anniversary Macintosh. but I don't know. I mean, I think they're interesting. I do kind of wonder if it's the kind of thing you only want because of what it is and not because of what it can do or anything like that. So
I recall on this unit there was an accelerator maker. I can't think of the name of the accelerator company. They made PowerPC. They made like PowerPC 603, 604 accelerators for systems that came with a 601 or something like that, or G3 accelerators for systems that had a 603, and they made an accelerator for this that took it up to like a G3. I think this is either a 602 or 601. And it was because the owner of the company stated that he had several of these. He loved these machines and he wanted them for himself. And so they engineered and sold these things, but really he wanted to run this machine as long as he could. And so you could get a G3 for it. But that's yeah.
Cool. My guess, if I were going to guess, I would guess Newer is the one who made that. Does that sound right?
Sounds like a thing Newer would do. Yeah.
Could be Newer. Yep.
Because this basically is a Power Mac 5500 or whatever. Like it's not a speed demon.
Anyway. Okay. So I think that now takes me to the end of my list. I skipped, and I did, for those who are not looking at the show notes, I skipped 3. 4. I skipped 4. So
excellent.
So yeah. Anyway. Okay. So I think we can probably move on from that to our closing notes. Blake, did you have anything that you wanted to close with?
I don't really. I still need to get that LX HP clamshell 100 LX working. I'm having trouble getting it to recognize the 16 meg CF cards, which it should be recognizing. But anyway, I guess perhaps I'll have more news on that next time, hopefully. But that's about it.
The joy of so the fun of retro computing is the like tech debugging.
Yeah, it's like well let's put this 16 gig card in my Windows 10 machine and format it FAT12 and see if it works. Like these are the these are the golden moments of retro computing. So, and then it doesn't work. So I'm sure I'll be ordering some more, of course, old cards by requirement on eBay to try out with this thing. You certainly can't buy new 16 megabyte cards.
Yeah.
You can't buy any like flash cards anymore, I guess. Maybe you can. I don't know. But
I definitely worried about that for a while. That like like for the CFFA 3000 or whatever. That like, you just aren't going to be able to get these things anymore. Because why would you be able to?
Right. I don't think any modern things use it except for what all of us here would call modern. New devices that let the retro machines use it. And frankly, they ought to probably start using micro SD, and they are, and some of them do, but but some of them, like there's a list. I have several devices. I have a great many devices that use compact flash cards, actually, and for each one, you can find in some thread on some forum. Here's a list of the cards that have been tested, and here's the year spans that they're likely to work. So without even trying, there was another device, and I said, okay, I need something that's before 1994. I go on eBay, and start. Let me buy the oldest, the smallest, oldest card I can find, and let's just buy 2 just in case. So that's how that works. But I'll let you know. I'll track this thing.
Excellent. Carrington, any closing thoughts?
I got nothing. I have no thoughts. I'm
you're serious.
I am serious. I work. I too much work. Really busy period. There's supposedly a pandemic on, and yet I'm working like crazy. Not around other people, which is good, but too busy for fun.
Yeah,
it said on his tombstone.
Yeah,
making bad choices.
Right next to it, real players sucks.
Sucks. With 4, 5, or 7 U's. Continues around the other side of the tombstone. Just you gotta walk around and see.
Right.
Someone will come hang a buffering sign on your
exactly.
It's like a little pinwheel that will blow in the wind.
A pinwheel would be great if you have on a tombstone. That'd be awesome.
I really like the idea of a pinwheel that has a design on it that looks like the reloading or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
Jack, any closing commentary?
Yeah, no, not really. I've not done any retro computing stuff in my spare time these days either, but
okay.
Sorry.
It's okay. I realized
we can't all be Blake.
No.
As I reached the end here, I never mentioned the thing that I was going to mention from our host's topic. So maybe we should just start over.
Okay.
But,
welcome to RCR.
But so in Sebastian's email, he pointed out that he has a site, Leisure Project, which is basically an old. He said he called it an old style website for watching QuickTime movies on retro computers, and it's called Cornica. So cornica.org. And it actually does have a bunch of sort of like QuickTime movies that you can download if you want to watch them in some form of QuickTime. Interestingly, I couldn't watch them on a modern browser. So you need to be using an old computer, I think, to really get it to work or download them. But all kinds of, 8 megabyte, 320 by 240, iMac ads, things.
Nice.
Which I think is pretty cool. It's quite possible that this site will never get a takedown notice from Apple because the algorithms can't see pixels that small.
That's amazing.
That's probably right.
Anyway, so that's my closing note is remembering something that I missed. But I got I got the Kansas Fest 2020 T-shirt. I don't have it to display, but as part of that, I got a mug with a Lisa on it, and I think looks like it's actually reversed. But at any rate, who knows? I never know when a camera is reversing things or not anymore. But that's kind of nice.
That's a nice mug.
So my father sent me a bunch of he was just sort of like cleaning up and had a bunch of like old miscellaneous like computer things. He's like, I don't want these things. Do you want these things?
They were his things or your old things as a kid?
Well, I think for the most part, they were the second box that he sent, at least, were mostly things that were kind of his from early Mac days. So they weren't mine. Like I had no nostalgia directly with them, but he did send me some things. So I have like a it's reversed.
Oh, RAM
It's on a
doubler.
RAM doubler. Let me just see if I can flip this. I don't know if I can.
Can you?
There. Okay.
Oh,
There.
look at you,
RAM
Flipper.
So I thought that was kind of nice, and all these things are so big when you hold them in your hand.
Maybe
and
your hands are really tiny.
That could be. But also, I think we were talking a little bit about graphic converter at some point.
Mhm.
Yeah, because it started recently doing Apple II graphics.
Yeah, and so I have an actual like CD with it on it.
Wow.
Oh my goodness. I have never seen that before.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Everyone just gets that online. That's crazy.
Yeah, I know. I
Why,
thought that was
why
pretty
is
weird.
there a CD?
I know. And also another thing came was a manual
Oh.
for Eudora.
Oh,
I
wow.
still miss Eudora. Just showing that to me makes me miss it. Back when I didn't hate email, probably because of Eudora.
So I think that was pretty cool. And then I'm not sure. I don't remember what this came with, but it's a little informational pamphlet that says "Don't copy that floppy," from the whatever it is, the Software Publishers Association. So I'll no doubt scan these at some point when I get closer. To
You will specifically copy that? Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Now I'm going to have that rap stuck in my head
I know,
all
yes.
night. That don't
Yeah.
copy that floppy. Thank
Exactly.
you.
But other than that, I mean, like, other than like getting the mail, I haven't really had time for much else. So, I too am looking forward to the time. Oh, today is the day, the deadline for submitting Kansas Fest deadline. Kansas Fest presentations.
Okay.
I'm,
Who knew?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I knew, but I didn't do anything about it. So,
I didn't know.
well, still got a few hours.
It's all good.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I'm going to submit anything. I really intended to, but who knows? Anyway, that's about it, though, for me. So
Cool.
all right. So yeah, somehow I feel like we rushed through it, and it still took 2 hours.
2 hours, baby.
I think we had a lot to say about the main topic. I think we all had
Yeah.
a lot to say. So
Yeah. Although I have to say, the last time we had a lot to say about the TV appearances on computers. It's like it was like 45 minutes in, and we had only kind of gotten through that. So, anyway, but thank you everybody for joining us on the stream. Thank you everybody for podcasting. And I guess that's it for this show. You can find the show notes for all the RCR shows at rcrpodcast.com. You can discuss us in the forums at vcfed.org/forum/forum.php. You can follow RCR on Twitter at RCR Podcast. You can join our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/RCR Podcast. Send feedback to feedback@rcrpodcast.com. We are a member of the Throwback Network at Throwback.
That's it, Paul. I don't even have to say anything.
This is the advantage of doing like video recording. So because it's good to have somebody sort of dancing along with the road part. But at any rate, we are yes. So we are a member of the Throwback Network at throwbackreviews.com. Please write a review on iTunes. It might help people find the show. And until next time, retro
compute.
Okay.
Nailed it.
All that up later. So, I noticed I have this there's a rubber band that used to hold something together, and it broke at one point, and I have it on my desk, and so I just play with it the whole time, and periodically I put my hand up, but I'm holding this rubber band. It's very strange. So
With no explanation. Yeah.
Yes, we're
Thanks for
done.
watching, everybody, and listening.
Thanks, everybody.
so
all right.
now I will end the broadcast. Goodbye, broadcast.
Bye, YouTube.